All Great. Thank you, Lauren. Um, it's great to be with you all today. So we have a presentation that should take probably 15, 20 minutes that we want to have some time for discussion as well. I'll share my screen and please, don't hesitate to unmute yourself, chat, whatever you need to do to ask any questions that you have. Alrighty. So we are from CCS Fundraising. We'll tell you a little bit about what CCS is. And we want to go through kind of four main topics with you today. The first, we'll do some welcome and introductions. We want to talk about the current landscape and trends. So as you may know, fundraising data is a hot topic right now, and there's tons and tons of data being collected and analyzed across the sector. And we're able to get really specific with geography, with specific types of nonprofits. So we have lots of good data to share with you today around what's happening in the philanthropic landscape. Section 3 is probably the most, I think, the most interesting section. We're going to get into like real strategies for how you could take the data, what we know is happening in the philanthropic landscape, and apply it to the organizations that you're working with to secure, really transformational major gifts. We know, as you'll see, major gifts are an incredibly important part of fundraising for any organization. They're becoming more and more important for the environmental sector, where folks are giving these like really ginormous gifts. And so we want to talk about like how can you position yourself and your organization to be a recipient of one of those gifts. And then again, as I mentioned, we'll close with some discussion. So this is Danielle and me. I guess I'll introduce myself, Danielle, and then do you want to unmute yourself and you can go next. My name is Tyler. I'm based in New York City on the Upper East Side. I've been with CCS for 5 years. I'm a vice president here, and I've had the pleasure of working with close to a dozen nonprofits across healthcare, environment, education, helping them raise money and rethinking the ways that they run their development teams. And before that, I was a teacher. So that's education is kind of my main passion and interest. And so I get to work with a lot of elementary, middle, and high schools.
Great. Thanks, Tyler. My name is Danielle Piazza, and I have been with CCS now for about 7 years, but I have been fundraising for about 16 years. I am a senior VP with CCS. I also work with different types of organizations across many different sectors. So it is great to be with you all today. I am based in New Jersey, so I am waiting to hear if my kid's school is closed tomorrow for a snow day. My client is closed, so my fingers and toes are crossed. I hope we actually get to see snow this year. That's what Lauren and I were speaking about when all of you joined. But yes, it's great to be with you guys today, and we're looking forward to this being very interactive. So please, like Tyler said in the beginning, unmute yourself, raise your hand, jump in, ask questions. We want to hear from you guys. Thank you.
Thanks, Danielle. So just a bit about who we are and kind of why we're here talking to you. So we are part of CCS Fundraising. We are a nonprofit consulting firm that partners with hundreds of organizations, mostly across the country, but also in Europe, in Africa and Asia as well. We've been around for 75 years, and our services really span the spectrum, right? So we do everything from fundraising campaigns, some really big ones, multi-billion-dollar ones, down to smaller campaigns that are, less than $1 million. We also do a lot of interim development management, data analytics, feasibility studies. So our staff, we have about 550 people. Our staff is working directly with hundreds of nonprofits every day, helping them, achieve their fundraising goals. And so what we want to do today is bring as much of that experience to bear and share with you what we know is happening on the ground and how it might be relevant for your organizations. We do a lot of work in Jersey, so I think this was the max amount of logos we were able to fit onto one screen. But you can take a look. I'm not sure if any of these ring a bell. I'm currently, just for reference, working, for example, with Brick, which is based in Newark. And there's a number of other ones here that we've had experience with. So we have deep roots in Jersey. Danielle lives in Jersey. I was born in Jersey. Our boss lives in Montclair. And so we work with hundreds of charitable organizations across the state. So it's great to be able to bring that like very specific geographical data to you as well. Okay, so I'm going to pass it to Danielle to talk about like the data, the current landscapes and the trends. But before we get into it, I'll just share, there's really two like critical pieces of data, two data sets that we're using today. One of them is the Giving USA data. So this is, probably the largest data sweep and analysis that's done in the philanthropic sector every year. And then the second is data that we collect in-house at CCS. So we talk to thousands of donors every year, tens of thousands every year, and then also thousands of nonprofits to gather data about like what is happening on the ground. So those two data sets we're going to talk about, and Danielle's going to share some information. And Danielle, just let me know when you'd like me to advance.
All right, perfect. Thanks, Tyler. So when we looked at the bigger picture for 2021, we really were astounded by how much money was raised across all sectors in the United States at $484 billion. Now, when we broke down the data to find out which constituent bases gave the most money, it is pretty evident that it would always be individuals. I mean, for the last 7 years that I've been at CCS and I've been privy to this data early on, it usually has been around the 70% mark, maybe even a little higher for individuals giving as the highest group of individuals and families giving to philanthropy across all sectors, with $326.87 billion. Now, it is down from the 70%, as I mentioned, that I'm used to seeing, but it is still moving up as we speak. And over the last year, it has gone up almost 5%. So it's starting to resurface. But another trend with individuals that I just wanted to mention is that they may not be giving as many gifts, but they are giving larger gifts. That's something that we see. They may increase their gift by $10 or by $1,000 or even by $100,000, but they are increasing their gifts across different sectors, depending on where they're giving and how mission driven they are at the time. Another area that we found very interesting is that people are now giving more and more by foundations. People are setting up their own family foundations. So this is the sector that has grown the most that I've seen over the last 16 years of my work in philanthropy. It's pretty impressive as well. It's $90.88 billion this past year in 2021, and it's up 3.4%. I'm not sure if you all are seeing that increase in your nonprofits, but that is something that my clients are experiencing annually, this increase of giving by donor advised funds, given by family foundations. So it's pretty impressive to see how things are starting to change and fluctuate. Now, another area would be bequests. It's saying that it's down by 7% over the year prior, but I have seen this in my day-to-day work, and I don't know how Tyler has seen in his clients, but this has gone up for myself in the work that I'm doing, but overall it's reporting it as being down, but $46.01 billion is really nothing to say is too low, right? So, and giving for corporations is happily and successfully going up, because this is something that we haven't seen in a long time. More matching, which is really impressive and encouraging for nonprofits all through every sector, is that corporations are becoming more philanthropic by giving matching gifts to individuals that give to nonprofits. So that's up 24%, which is terrific. And I like to see that, because I feel that a lot of corporations went in the direction of more of an involved, like a volunteer engagement for a while, where they were just sending out troops of volunteers, which is super helpful. But at the end of the day, nonprofits need funding too. So I was really happy and impressed to see that it's going up and it's on the rise. All right, Tyler. Oh, question. Do you think that corp giving was up due to, yes. I do think it was up due to COVID. That was the question asked. Do you think it's impacted? Yeah.
I can just add to that as well. Yeah. So corporate giving is by far the most malleable. I think that's the right word. So what I mean by that is it changes a lot. And it's very much dependent on the economy. So we'll look at this in a little bit because, folks are concerned about a potential recession. What does that mean for giving? Generally speaking, individuals, foundations, they give pretty consistently, but corporations go up and down based on the economy. 2020 was a year where everyone was reining it in. They were scared, not a lot of giving from corporations. So 2021 was a big year of output and year of giving to for COVID relief and also for racial justice issues as well. Danielle, are you there? Oh,
Bad weather here, so I apologize. I may have to go off I may have to go off camera for it to stabilize. Okay. Okay, perfect. So giving grew in 8 out of 10 sectors. So what this means is here, when you look at the graph, obviously, education was down by about 3%. International affairs stayed stable and was no change at all from the year prior. And impressively enough, environment and animal nonprofits have gone up 11%. So that was something really encouraging that Tyler and I spoke about earlier today, that, it's really great to see, over 10% growth in any of the organizations that we talk to. So this was something that we really felt strongly that this was a very positive and encouraging way to look at things. All right, Tyler, you want to go on to the next? Okay, so the average donation to environment causes was over $800 per donation. Here, as you can see, the average donation overall is $813. So it's really not off by much for an average gift. Average online gift is about $204, which seems low to me, but that's what it's reporting at this point. So when we look at this, we really wanted to make sure that, we were looking at the data correctly. We wanted to make sure that it made the most sense. And we wanted to throw it out to you all to see if your average gift was about $807, maybe a little bit more, just to get your feedback on these results. Anybody want to share with us?
I guess more generally, does that number surprise you? Is it high, low?
Low, yeah.
I'm Denise. I'm with the Morris County Park Commission here, and it's surprising to me. It's higher than what I have seen from my average individuals. I think, $250 is a high donation for us. It could be that because I'm kind of connected to a government agency, that people see us as government. That's my challenge. But yeah, I would love to get $800 donations.
Well, Denise, just to be clear on this too, like one of the reasons why it's higher than like the average donation that might come in on a given day is because major gifts skew these numbers really high, right? So
Sure. Yeah.
When you're looking at, percentage of total fundraising in any given organization, we often see like 80-90% of gifts coming from like the top 1% of donors.
Right.
So you might get 1,000 $1 gifts, and then you get that $1 million gift, and your numbers get really skewed high up there.
Sure. Yes. Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else would like to share? No? Okay. All right, Tyler, do you want to? Okay, perfect. All right. So when we were looking here at environmental organizations and experiencing increase in donors from last year, 89% cited that family foundations, as we mentioned before, as their main source of gifts or pledges, followed by donor advised funds and appreciated assets. Now, I found that to be very interesting because I have seen that a lot, and I'm in the education space right now working on a large campaign for a school. And that has been the case. The top 1% that Tyler just spoke about has all come from a family foundation. So it's pretty interesting to me that others in your particular sector are also seeing very similar results. 60% of environment nonprofits increased in numbers of donors last year, which is very great. That's the best news we could get, right? We want more donors, we want more gifts, we want people to be more engaged in our missions and support what we do. I'm curious to see if everybody feels that their donor numbers are up from last year. Don't be shy. All right. Okay, well, we'll move on. If anyone feels like they want to share in the chat, let us know. We want to make sure that people are finding this information engaging and make sure it's resonating with you and your current work and the things that you do on a daily basis. 53% received up to 20% of their gift in a non-cash assets, which is pretty incredible. You know, they're really looking towards these gifts and saying, wow, we're getting all, you know, quite a bit in, and this is the way we're receiving it, which is, I was a little taken back by that number, to be quite honest. 55% reported they expect to see an increase in major gifts in 2023 compared to last year. So I felt like this was also an impressive number, because what are they doing in order to increase the amount of major gifts that will be coming in? I'm wondering if they're going to be shifting to a certain type of model, or if they're just going to be increasing their outreach or targeting more effectively what kind of donors could give at these levels, or maybe even bringing current donors up to major gift status, or what major gift status could possibly be, because everyone defines major gifts at different numbers. 53% list donor acquisition as their top challenge, followed by donor retention, stewardship, hiring, and retaining fundraising staff. I have definitely seen this across many sectors. Donor acquisition has always been a top challenge for many clients that I have been working with over the years. It's just a very difficult thing to master. But I do see that retention and stewardship in many of our clients at CCS, and Tyler can probably attest to this too, is that we work directly with our clients on moves management, which is a system that we'll talk about shortly. And because of the system that we help them put into place, that retention and stewardship is a main priority, they don't struggle as much as other nonprofits that may not use moves management. They actually have great success with stewardship once they have implemented the system. And then hiring and retaining fundraising staff. This is something this particular year, I'm helping 2 other clients try to hire development staff, a major gift officer, and a development associate. And it has been extremely challenging to find qualified, engaging candidates for their staff. So that's something that I definitely have seen an issue with and seen challenges. 58% offer DEI training to fundraising staff and or board members, which is terrific. We're finally moving in the right direction when it comes to that. We're finally taking notice, and we're making it a priority. So I think that that's really, really encouraging. Tyler, did you have anything on these topics?
No, I don't. I think that you covered it all.
Thank you.
I'll take over from here and tell you guys a bit more about some tactics. So COVID was obviously a very challenging time, but also a time that resulted in an incredible amount of innovation. You know, this is not just the nonprofit sector, but it certainly impacted us as well. And so the question is, like, what are the key strategies that we developed or acquired during COVID that we're going to continue with? And, you know, it's great to see that, like, across the board, nonprofits are shifting the way they're working. They're going more virtual. They're focusing more on stewardship events as opposed to like selling tables, which we see as a really strong shift. And then they're enhancing personalized communication. So there's a number of things here that you can kind of see these trends happening. New Jersey is like really well aligned. So the tri-state area is well aligned with national averages. And, I think the one thing that we're seeing a lot of here is gift planning focus. So Danielle spoke about the trends. There's going to be a huge transfer of wealth in the next couple of decades. And there's a major opportunity to capture that wealth. Even a small percentage of it would have a major impact on the social sector. And so a lot of our clients, a lot of nonprofits are staffing up now. They are hiring gift planning folks, they are taking lessons and workshops, and they're really just getting comfortable with it so they can begin talking to their prospects about how to make really meaningful planned gifts. Danielle mentioned this, so I won't spend too much time on it. Donor acquisition and retention is a top challenge. What we know is that your last donor is your best next donor, and it's also your cheapest next donor, right? Like acquiring new donors is more expensive, so you want to retain as much as you can. But it's a struggle. People's minds are not always focused on one thing. They get excited about something, they go somewhere else. So staying in front of your donors is incredibly important, and providing them with the messages, the social experiences, the events that keep them engaged is really critical. And then, we included this slide to say philanthropy is resilient because we provided a lot of data. And what we didn't say is like, well, what comes next, right? Like, what do the next couple of years look like? And there's no way for us to predict this. But what we do know is that there's a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of anxiety right now around the economy. I think things have kind of flattened out a little bit over the last couple of months, but still, organizations are in budgeting right now. In many cases, they're thinking about like, what can they raise next year? And if inflation spikes, if there's a recession, what does that look like? The good news is that when you look at the data, you look at past recessions, you look at past crises like 9/11, for example, COVID. Philanthropy is incredibly resilient on the aggregate. That's not to say that there aren't winners and losers, right? So the reality is when you look deeper at the data, there are some organizations that suffer during times of economic downturn, and there's some organizations that thrive. And so it is not a given that your organization will continue doing great through a recession or through a financial downturn. It requires like a certain amount of intentionality. But also the good news is it's not rocket science. Like the organizations that do well during financial downturns are the ones that, double down on communications, are there for their donors, do extra stewardship, continue doing events. They don't cancel their fundraising initiatives or their campaigns because that puts them back years. It's the organizations that stay the course, that double down in the relationship building that end up, being quite resilient. So that if you're worried about the future, definitely keep that in mind. So given all of this data, we wanted to transition over to the next topic, which is, well, how do we secure major gifts, right? So major gifts from individuals in particular are a huge portion of how nonprofits are securing their future. So how can your organization position itself to attract those gifts? We also know this is particularly important for your sector. A quick Google search, the amount of huge gifts that are going for environmental causes is astonishing. And in the next slide, these are like the mega gifts, right? So Stanford received 1.1 billion from John and Andor. Caltech received 100 million. And Danielle and I don't know where everyone works here. We don't know if you're in a position to be attracting $100 million gifts. We hope you are, but more likely than not, that's not the type of organization you're at. But it actually doesn't matter because it's the same tactics, it's the same strategies that you can apply to get that $10,000, $50,000, $100,000 gift, whatever is your big gift. We can do the same things at your organizations to attract those gifts. And given, I think, some particular things that go on in the environmental sector, what's happening with climate change and that becoming obviously a really important topic at the top of folks' minds. The kind of fragmentation within the environmental sector where individuals care a lot, oftentimes about like a very specific cause, whether it's like a specific wildlife or it's a specific, type of environment. So I think those are some areas that we can think about when we think about how to elevate the level of giving. And Danielle is going to walk us through 3 strategies that we hope you will find helpful when you think about how to secure really big transformational gifts for your organization. So I'll pass it to Danielle.
Thanks, Tyler. As I mentioned early on, this is a formula. Major moves management is a system that at CCS, we work with all of our clients. We teach them, we do trainings and coaching and mentoring. I had never used moves management when I was working on the other side. Before I was a consultant, I was an advancement director for 3 different types of organizations in 3 different sectors. And I did not know this system until I came to CCS. When I learned this system and I was able to help other nonprofits utilize this system and start to really raise significant amounts of money for their causes, as well as have those transformative gifts come through at any level, whichever was transformative for them. It was very clear to me that fundraising should only be done this way, but that's just me, because of the success that I've seen other clients have, that I want to make sure that other people know about this and are using this. And if you're not aware of it, it's something that you can Google and learn about and utilize within your organization. It's not something that you can only get from CCS. It's a very common practice in fundraising and utilizing it for major gift fundraising. Is anyone utilizing this types of system within their organization today? You can answer in the chat. Tyler's monitoring the chat for us. All right. Well, if it's not something that you're utilizing, that's okay. Because like I said, for almost 10 years, I didn't know how to do it either. But it is really a great system. It helps to, oh yes, Jen's using it. Jenny's using it. Oh, could be more structured. Jenny, that is true of a lot of nonprofits. Everything could be more structured. Jenny, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm kind of got a case of COVID.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope you feel better.
I was sort of just listening because I'm sure nobody wants to listen to my awful voice. I don't.
Oh, you don't sound bad at all.
No, considering, but yeah.
Yes.
My problem is probably the same as many others working in small and medium organizations, that we wear different hats, and we try to focus on the major gifts, but we get pulled in other directions. So I've been trying to spend more time on the cultivation and getting to know donors better. So that's kind of where I'm at. So I would say that it's a work in progress.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, at least you're trying. That's all you can do, right? Is start to put the wheels in motion and start to do that. Because what we have seen truly is that if you do these steps and you get to the stewarding step, that you're stewarding them for the next gift. So it just continues. And we have a really great example of that in the next slide. Jenny, thank you so much for sharing with us. And if we can do anything offline to help you, let us know. Absolutely. Feel better. Tyler, did you want to talk about this case study that you shared?
Of course. So I think, Jenny, like one thing that I would just add is very, very common problem that you're facing.
Yes.
One of the things that sometimes can be helpful in terms of like kind of convincing leadership to give you the latitude, the time to go out and meet with donors, put events and other things like that on the back burner is just the data. I mean, the data is incredibly compelling.
Mm-hmm.
It costs less money and you get so much return when you do this type of work, right? So because there's individuals that
they actually have. They have. I've been with my organization about almost 8 years, and this past year they took communications away from me, thankfully, and they hired a full-time events person. So I think this year
Good.
will be better for
Good.
my being able to meet with more people.
Good.
And that's been happening, though. I do find that like it's a lot of work to get that first meeting.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. The intro meeting can be very difficult, and then oftentimes it's easy to get them hooked. But leveraging your board and other individual contacts obviously can be very helpful there. And I'll just share this case study that's on the screen, just as an example of like how moves management works. This is complicated. Like, it's not supposed to look pretty and easy to read. And the reason why is because like moves management is not such a simple like circle. You don't do an action, cross it off, go do the next action. In reality, you're dealing with people. You're dealing with people who often have busy lives where your organization is not their main priority. And so it's kind of iterative. But what you'll see is that like through really intentional stewardship. So, this person gave 2.5 million in 2011, individual stewardship meetings once or twice a year throughout that time. They joined a leadership cabinet. They joined a campaign committee. They were invited to events. All of these things fed into the same goal of having this person increase their giving. So they went from 2.5 to 2 to 5. They gave a small grant for something they were really excited about, and the organization took that and stewarded them incredibly well. And then the year later, they made their big kind of capstone gift of $10 million. So this all just goes to show that behind the scenes, we're going through that moves management process over and over again, all towards the goal of getting these individuals to increase their giving.
Tyler, it's so impressive to me that the way that they moved and the numbers that they picked, like 2.5 to 5, and now we're 50,000, and then we go up to $10 million. Yeah. So it would be very interesting to see what type of conversations and go deeper into this, to see how the flow went, because it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Well, I think it's what we're about to talk about, Danielle, is like very much related to why this all panned out, right? Yes. These weren't random asks. They were, we got to know the donor really, really well. We got to know what made her tick, what she enjoyed hearing about. And when an opportunity came where we needed funding for something that she was excited about, we did not hesitate to put it in front of her. And I'll just say the other kind of tactic that we're not going to really talk about much today, but that could be very helpful, is a campaign. So this big gift was the only gift that she made, the only time that there was a campaign, was this big gift. So she wanted to be a big part of that campaign. She wanted to, have a big percentage basis of the campaign. And so that's one of the reasons why she stepped up in this most recent year.
That's terrific. Excellent. So as Tyler was just mentioning, one of the most important things that I, as a fundraiser in my past life, and then teaching fundraisers how to fundraise even more and more effectively and efficiently, is that having that case for support, having that mission very clear, very focused, having particular messaging that is personalized towards the donor, knowing exactly what they're looking to give their money to as part of your organization is really critical. It doesn't mean that unrestricted giving can't happen. Some people might want to have it restricted, but it's going to be very, very important that your mission is very clear, that is reconfirmed every time that you talk to them, every time that you are discussing how important their gifts are to your organization. Really clarifying and making it very, very focused on what you are currently doing and what your funding priorities are is really critical, because sometimes organizations don't always have a clear vision, and that's okay, but you have to be able to vocalize and put in writing what exactly you need this money for, right? It's not just the mission. The mission goes only so far, and then you really have to explain what you're doing, right? And then you have to demonstrate the particular value, okay? Because the donor is no longer just a donor that writes a check. It is a donor that is invested. They are mission driven. They want to know that their impact matters to your organization and what you're, for your organization and who you are affecting and helping. So that is really, really something that I've seen. A really well-written case for support can really help to just clarify things for the donor, bring them to that place that Tyler just talked about, getting them to that, that high mark where they're like, this is my transformative gift. This is why I do it. And this is how you're going, my gift is going to make the biggest impact. And I'm going to do it with you as a partner in this. So I think that some people take the time to do this. Others may feel like, I don't even know where to start. So this is really the dynamic. And we wanted to show that if you broke this down into 3 equal pieces and started to work internally as a group on what these 3 areas look like for you, this will be much easier for you to discuss and really break down for donors when you do start to have those intro meetings and those briefing meetings and possibly solicitation meetings. It's really going to bring it a long way when utilizing moves management and getting you to the next level with each donor. All right, Tyler, you want to go to the next? All right, perfect. So effectively stewarding your donors increases their giving. Now, this is something that I felt when I was starting to learn how to do moves management. This is the part that impressed me the most, is that when the donor is stewarded properly and effectively, they come back and they give more every time. This has been my experience now at multiple clients, and I just am blown away by what that looks like. Effective stewardship is multiple things, right? It's not just making a phone call or seeing a donor once a year. This is a lot of work. This is the part that takes time. But as Tyler said, it's better to keep a donor than to try to find a new one. So this is the part where you really want to make sure that you're being most effective, because they've already given a donation. You can get them to the next level by just providing simple things such as acknowledgement, recognition, making sure that you are doing the handwritten notes, that you are calling, checking in, wishing them happy holidays or whatever that may be. That goes a very, very long way for such a simple gesture. Mission exposure and education, having different types of activities within your organization to share with donors on your progress, your impact, what's happening in the sector, how you're a major part of that is really, really important. You could do this through multiple different ways: podcasts, speaker series, monthly newsletters. And we want this to be effective for you, but also not a ton of work. So try to figure out 2 or 3 things that you all can do internally well. Even if you're a one-man shop, what is it that you can do to keep donors engaged all year long and keep stewarding them to the next gift? Events and networking. This is really important because this continues to keep them engaged in different ways. And this area here can be really heavily driven by volunteers. So that if you are a one woman, one man shop, you don't have to spread yourself so thin because you're doing multiple events and you're trying to do all these things to keep donors engaged. So this is something where you could recruit a great, group of volunteers and have them be part of this, networking / events driven stewardship activities. Does anybody have any questions about that? Okay, perfect. All right.
So that's our presentation. Are there any questions, any thoughts, reflections? I mean, we'd really love to hear from some of you, and thank you. Some have already opened up. We appreciate it. Just about like what resonates, what maybe do you think doesn't work specifically in your circumstances? Anything you might think would be helpful.
Well, I think what you said about having a campaign is important because we don't have one right now, and we're actually doing a strategic plan. And I'm hoping that the end result of that strategic plan will be that we need a campaign, because we've been fairly successful with our annual fund appeals and some of our special appeals for like camp scholarship program and our major fundraising events that have done well. But it's been a couple years. Our last campaign was an endowment campaign, a small one of 4 million in 2018 before COVID. And we identify a lot of areas that we're growing and that we need to grow and that we could have a campaign. So I think that doing all that, having a campaign, having a clear case for giving is really going to have to be our next step.
Yep. and I'll just say, more and more we're seeing organizations that are just going from campaign to campaign to campaign. So not to say that there shouldn't be a legitimate rationale for needing a campaign, but you can also think about a campaign in some instances as a messaging tool, right? As a way of bringing together your leadership, thinking through like what is the vision for the next 5 to 10 years and how can we sell that vision to our donor community. It doesn't, there's a misconception about campaigns that it always has to be like, we're entering a new market, we're building a new building, we need a new endowment. It doesn't have to be this like brand new thing every time. So, just keep that in mind, because we're seeing more and more of this more nuanced campaigns.
I think that's right. It's just a matter of, organizing what we do in a way that people can relate to different aspects of our work and find the part of our work that most resonates with them, and then providing them opportunities and also tying what they're giving to what it will do. So I think that's often something that doesn't happen when you're annual funding for annual giving.
Danielle, there's a question in the chat. Maybe I'll read it to you because I think that you'll be able to answer this well. So, in what role does an organization's board play in providing leads to the development team for mid-size and major gifts? And how do you recommend stewarding those donors among the board, executive director, development staff, et cetera?
Yeah, so this is, I always tell all of my clients, you start with the board and you end with the board. So the board has the privilege of being your board. Therefore, they are the volunteer leadership of your organization, and they need to help to make sure that they're leading the organization. And sometimes some of them are not as willing to help with philanthropy, but a way to have them help without having them be the direct solicitors of gifts is to have them be open to reviewing prospect lists with you, looking at people they may know. Now, something that I always see happen at clients is that we bring a list to our board and we say, who do you know? They're not going to do it that way. So what we offer to a lot of our clients is that we go into your database, we look at your database, we pull out the data, and we see how people are connected. And then therefore we're able to say, okay, your board members definitely know most of these people, so we need to strategize on how they can help. And that is a prospect meeting that has to take place with boards to make them understand that we're not asking you to ask for money, we're asking you to make introductions so that we can ask for money. So to me, it is very important. They need to be fully engaged and accept the fact that they need to be the solution for philanthropy, and they need to actually be leaders in philanthropy for your organization. A lot of the boards that I work with now directly are very comfortable with this concept. I think it's very known now that board members need to lead by example. But you may still have some board members that can only give a certain amount, may not have a lot of connections, and that's okay. If they're at least willing to be part of conversations, or at least say, this will be very impactful for X, Y, and Z, then maybe getting those conversations started is helpful. But I also think that there's a lag and a lack of training when it comes to boards in regards to philanthropy. I think that they don't fully understand what philanthropy is sometimes. And if you're able to go to them with a training or an idea of what it is you need from them, very specifically laid out, they're more willing to help. That's my advice, is that really making sure that they're able to, one, give their own gift, and you're able to continuously steward them to their next gift, but they're also advocates for getting more gifts is really going to be important. Anybody else have any more questions?
I see Denise, you have your hand
Yeah,
raised.
sorry.
Very politely, thank you.
It's kind of hard to know when to jump in and everything.
Yeah, of course.
My friends on this call will know that I ask this question almost every time we have a great consulting organization. But here at the Park Alliance, one of our popular programs is the ability for somebody to do memorial benches and memorial trees. That's a lot of my database in terms of individual giving. People will give to, or a group of people will give to this memorial bench that's going in a tree. So I call them my one-off donors, and I have a lot of them. And so stewarding these one-off donors who don't necessarily have a connection to the park, but have a connection to the person, I just don't know how to get them, or even a percentage of them, to give for something else, or to give for a kind of a general donation after they've made a $50 gift towards this memorial bench. So any suggestions you have would be
Sure. Yeah, I have a few thoughts on this. A lot of organizations have this type of a donor. The first thing that I'll just say up front is your retention of those donors is never going to be as high as other segments, right? So like we always are pushing to increase retention, but it's always going to be relatively low. One of the things that I think is important is managing the database well in this case, right? So being very clear in your database about who gave and why they gave, so that you're able to segment and give them the messages that are going to resonate with them. We at a client, I work at one of my clients is a neurological research institute, and we got thousands of memorial gifts for this one child who unfortunately passed. And so what we've done is like a mini campaign every year for that child and on behalf of that child, where the thousands of people who supported that one time, they're not going to get all of the messages that we send out throughout the year. They're going to get a few targeted messages that are for and about that child. And what happens is you start to see some of those people, they start giving recurring gifts, and you slowly start to incorporate them into other components of your organization. But just to wrap it up, I would just say the management of the database is super important, and then communicating to them based on the reasons why they gave, and not just kind of blanket communications that any old donor would receive is really important. And Danielle, I saw you maybe had a thought on this as well.
Yeah, I do. I think that I call those transactional donors because they're just giving and then disappearing. So what I have encouraged many of my clients to do with the transactional donors is obviously segmenting, like Tyler's saying, and then finding a way that resonates with this group, right? Maybe it's a cultivation event for only these types of donors, right? Bringing them together. This is the group that gave to the benches. We're going to have a celebration in the park to honor you for your gift towards these benches and the beautification of the park, and just bringing them closer to what you're doing and honoring them for their gift could bring them closer to saying, oh, what else do you do? You know what I mean? So it's just, that's a cultivation tactic that could work without spending a lot of money, just like inviting them to something small, showing appreciation, showing the impact in person of all the beautiful benches, and just bringing them closer to you and your mission goes a long way. A lot of times people give and then they never hear from the organization again. So like, why would I give again, right? It's constantly engaging them in some way that gets them to come back. And I think just showing that small bit of gratitude, but also impact, could change a lot of those people for you.
Thank you.
Of course.
Okay, Lauren, is that it? Or any other questions or thoughts?
Donna, did you want to discuss your question in the chat, or did you find the information helpful that was given?
I know, that was what I was looking for. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah, no worries. Yeah, they do. I don't know. You can look on their webpage to like understand their methodology more specifically, but I think it has to do with 990s and tax receipts and things like that.
Thank you.
Luckily, I don't have to deal with any of that. I just take the data and I trust that it's accurate.
This is Jenny. I might have missed it in the beginning as I came in a little bit late. What other trends are you seeing either nationally or in New Jersey that might be helpful for us to know?
I mean, like I said in the beginning, I said that we're seeing a lot less donors, but bigger gifts. So it may not be like huge number of donors coming through, but the gifts that they're giving are more impactful and they're larger in size. And I'm not just talking about $1 million gifts. I'm talking, 50,000, 25,000, 10,000. They're giving these bigger gifts, but there's not as many gifts, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, our number of donors has remained somewhat static. But like you said, though, we have people that the major donors are giving more, and that's been sustaining either the slight growth or growth of the annual fund giving. So
yeah,
it's been hard to get the lower dollar donors to I mean, our retention rate isn't terrible. It's about 65% on our major gifts are like 1,000 and over. Then we have our mid levels are 250 to 999. Sorry, my dog was barking. And anyway, so we see strong retention rates in the upper two levels and the under 250. We see a lot coming in, a lot coming out.
That's very common. I'll just say, I mean, 60% is strong at those upper levels, but it absolutely diminishes as you go down. I think our clients, like when we look at all the data aggregate, I think at like, we break it up by tiers. At the highest tier, it's somewhere like 50%, and then it goes down to 40, 30, and then like all the way down to 20 at your lowest level donors.
Yeah.
So I have a question. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Jenny. I just wanted to give you another insight with that.
Please.
I've also seen with annual fund donors that on an annual basis, you have to get creative. And I know that's exhausting sometimes, but coming up with new ways to engage them in different types of activities. One of my current clients right now, they did this outreach to all donors that give $100 or less. And if they gave $100, like during a short span of time, they received something. Like it was crazy. It was almost like a PBS thing in my opinion, but it was like, give $100, we'll give you this money clip. And they got 1,000 donors. I don't know how they did it, but everybody wanted the money clip. So it worked. Now, I'm not saying that everybody should do that because I don't believe in like buying tchotchkes and doing that. But if you refresh it and do new things every year, you can engage them in simple ways and help them to like maybe up their gift if that's what you're looking for them to do.
Thank you.
Of course. You were going to say something, Jenny, before I
we have a wealth screening, and I've been looking. There are some donors that give us like $50, but clearly they give other organizations a lot more, but usually they're not in the same category. Like, so for example, we're environmental, but we see a lot more giving to either human services or the arts. And I was wondering if you have any recommendation for how I could get these donors to understand more about the climate change and flooding and stormwater things that we do that they would care about if they knew more about it. I mean, how we're trying to make their communities more resilient by working with towns on stormwater management, but I don't know how to access these donors who give us 50 but give 10,000 somewhere else.
Right. Well, As we mentioned before, I don't know if it makes sense to steward them with like maybe a seminar every year where you invite some experts to come talk, like a panel to talk to your donors, and invite all of those donors that are
Yeah.
in that group to come and talk and do a specialty talk.
Jesse.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good idea. Yeah.
Or, you could do some kind of cultivation event where you have them all come together and you guys can specifically speak to those different areas of need. And just, and put that out there, and then have a follow-up system with each of them to say, thank you so much for coming. This is what we're looking for at this time. Would you be interested in doing a follow-up call with me in regards to upping your gift or increasing your gift at this time? And having very clear priorities of what you're raising money for. That's where that case for support comes in, so that you're able to really specifically explain to them what it is you're looking for and how their gift will directly impact the priorities that you're looking to fulfill right now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I would just echo, like, I think donors sometimes like group different types of nonprofits as like needing different levels of their financial support. And going back to what Danielle was saying about the case, like having an answer to like, well, what could you do if I was to give you $1 million? Knowing they're not going to ask you that question, it's very unlikely, but still talking to them in that way, knowing that, giving them the knowledge that like you could have a transformational impact here with us, might not get them to $1 million, but it might get them to 100,000 or to 250,000. And that's really important to have those kind of aspirational goals. Great. Thank you, Jenny, for your questions, and everyone else as well. And I see we're about at time. I'm going to drop our emails into the chat here, and it was really great to connect with you all. Let us know if you have any questions, and Danielle and I are both around in New Jersey if you ever want to meet and discuss the work that we do at CCS and how we might be able to support your organizations. Please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, everybody. Nice to meet you.
Thank you for attending and for our speakers today. We'll meet again next month.
Take care.
Take care.